the transcription as well, because it's a bit of a mess. Stop the transcript. Right. So evening, everyone. Your 4 pages of students. Let's hope we can keep this energy going towards the end of the semester as well. Thank you so much for first semester. Thank you so much for the feedback. I've paid a lot of attention to it. And those of you that have evaluated me, thank you so much for the evaluation. The average was really good, although I did say that it went down a little bit, and we'll try and get it back up to 96% for this semester as well. Right, let's start. Who is the greatest leader of the 20th century? Who is the greatest leader of the 20th century? The greatest leader of the 20th century. Any suggestions? So from 1900 to 1999. I would 100% agree with you, Gavin. That's the person that comes to mind immediately. I think he is the greatest leader of the 20th century, Nelson Mandela. Other suggestions, great leaders of the 20th century? Because we've had wonderful examples of really, really powerful leaders during the 20th century. Biden for that 21st century for me. So Obama is 21st century for me. Obama is 21st century, not up to 1999. Mangope, okay, Churchill, Mahatma Gandhi, okay, wonderful examples. Others? One of the magic things, though, and when I look at those leaders, is that the important thing to remember about leadership is that leadership is in the eye of the beholder. There are people that would look at some of those individuals that would go, "Oh my goodness me, I don't agree. That's not someone I consider a leader." And I think in there the slight magic of leadership is because it is eye of the beholder. Two people can look at the same person and think, "Wow," and not "wow." I think I might have shared this with you guys last year. I'm the opposite of a Trump supporter, so I won't describe in detail my loathing for this individual. And I shared that widely on in class. And one student one day took offense and spent a lot of time shouting at me why Trump is the greatest leader. Um, but exactly that. And I don't know whether that's true. I think for me, one of my favorite Gandhiisms was his. I don't know if you had ever seen this. So I think Gandhi was a wonderful leader. Gandhi, I love this seven sins. I think this is the one. Let's just see if we find it. Yeah. So if you look here very quickly, I don't know, is that large enough for you to see, guys? The seven sins, and it's sins of society. For me, it's just an indication of how deep this person thought about the world. And this was created in the 30s somewhere, 1925. My apologies. But you think of those seven in in the context of today. I mean, it's as relevant now. And I don't know if I shared this with you in first semester, and if I had, I am so sorry. Any comments about those? It's the same seven sins in 2026 that they were in 2025. Um, I mean, I can't even think of it in any order. We see this every day. I'm not religious, so I won't comment on that one. Um, they 100% relevant. A couple of years ago, I used to do strategic planning sessions for organizations, and we would write a vision and we'd write a mission statement. And once we've written the mission statement, we would write a value statement. And I would always show these during the time people write the value statement for their own company. And it's always interesting how people look at that and go, "Oh my gosh." and the way, and it was never to influence, it was more to suggest, what the world needs to start looking at. And I love that. And another famous Gandhi one is thoughts on, and I think it's thoughts on, oh, what was that? Um, it'll come to my mind right now. I'm going to switch my camera off. I think you've seen enough of me. I've seen thoughts on Western civilization. I don't know if anyone has ever seen this. Western civilization. It's one of his famous quotes. And he said what his thoughts on Western civilization somewhere in an interview. He said that it was a good idea. He had a wonderful sense of humor. So yeah, for me, I don't know whether I agree with whether he was racist, but he certainly is one of those great leaders. 21st century, great leader of the 21st century, greatest leader thus far of the 21st century. Martin Luther King, yes, Valencia, we cannot miss that. And if you ever, I listened to his original "I Have a Dream" speech again. It is so powerful, and the way he changed society in America. 21st century, for me, it's Barack Obama. So I will say that I will hang my flag against Barack Obama. Other great leaders of the, and if you're a Trump supporter, write Trump, guys. I mean, I'll only fail you. It's a joke. It's a joke. I won't fail you, but you'll struggle to pass. It is a joke again because someone will record that and and share it and complain about this. No one's going to put Trump down. Yeah, Tamarin, put Trump down. We know you're a Trump supporter. How's that picking on Tam in the first lecture? Warren Buffett, absolutely. We can't negotiate that. A wonderful leader. I don't know whether he's the greatest leader, but a phenomenal business leader. I mean, that's absolutely guaranteed. Uh, and also just everything we can learn from Buffett. Jacinda Ardern, wonderful leader. I had her as one of my great leaders of the 21st century, but it's also how quickly she became incredibly unpopular. I put Steve Jobs in the 20th century, though, Balenhle. And it's interesting how she lost momentum in New Zealand and how quickly her popularity disappeared. I mean, some of the stuff that she handled incredibly well was the mosque shooting. Remember that guy that dressed and that it was live streamed. I think it was live streamed. I think on Facebook, where the Macron has to be up there. I mean, a wonderful leader and a peacemaker. I think we must remember he is a peacemaker. If we take Obama out, after 2020, the greatest leader after 2020. I have a very clear person in mind, which I consider. He's not the greatest leader of the 21st century. For me, that's Obama, but after 2020. And remember, it's an opinion. It's an opinion. Obviously, you can have your own opinions. For me, it's Zelensky. So I think Zelensky post 2020 is a proper heroic leader. I think for me, he's a standout leader. I think, and it's interesting how he went from a comedy actor and a bit of a clown and a bit of a nobody. And I don't know that person very well. Lesego, do you want to share a bit about Ibrahim Traore? It does count because remember what we see, guys. The magic of leadership is eye of the beholder. So he has to be up there. And for a Muslim person to be appointed as mayor of New York, that is incredibly powerful. And his views and the way he sticks to his views and almost flying in the face of of the narrative coming from the White House, and still survives. Wonderful example. If we look at all these leaders, what are the things that make them great? What are the things that make them great? What are the things that we can draw on? So it's the ability to unite, and certainly, as much as some of them will unite, they unite, and they will also divide. I think for me, those almost internal personality things are very important. The behavior is important. The ability to unite. I mean, based on the ability to unite, and Hitler is a phenomenal leader of the 20th century. I mean, he got an entire country to back him and declare war against the rest of the world. I mean, Pope Leo is a wonderful, I think he is a wonderful modern leader. And he's brought humanity to the church. Integrity is 100% there. The bits around honesty and trustworthiness and predictability, essential features of that as well. And it's also the person who will step up when when the chips are down, when the nonsense is happening, and that's Zelensky again. Other criteria that makes a good leader great, or a leader great. It's interesting how we focused on the behavior aspect of it, and how we focused on the personal aspect of it. And those are important elements if you see when we go forward into the slides. Vision, absolutely. The Martin Luther, I have a dream moment. Emotional intelligence, exceptionally important, because the ability to read and control your own emotions and understand your emotions and read and understand the emotions in others, those elements are essential. So let's have a glance at the slides. Oh my goodness me. So yeah, the objective here, and we'll go through the outcomes every time, the relationship between leadership and the focus on power, and how power and leadership and influence and leadership go hand in hand. So I've stuck those two up because I think still in the 20th century, there were real issues around each of them. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of him, but I'm also not a big fan of him. And it's easy for me to use those two pictures because I'm not a fan of either of them. Would I vote for any of them? I think my favorite answer in terms of that would be the George W. Bush answer. He voted independent, although he was a lifelong Republican and he was also a Republican president. Sorry, hold on a second. A bit of asthma here. So, if we look at the definition of leadership, the idea of getting people to achieve a common goal. So, who put down vision earlier? That is always going to be the common goal, that overarching, Althea, that overarching vision. And then, yeah, I won't do that. So to get to this point, and this I would put down as an NB. I love asking this in exams. This is likely to be in an exam again. I would take a picture of it right now and write NB next to it. This is what I suppose I would call a hot tip. Please don't shoot me if it's not in the exam, but it's one of the recurring themes in terms of exam papers. And we look at the four different approaches. I think it's Grint is the theorist. So leadership as a person. So it's about traits and characteristics and those kinds of things. Leadership as a process, which is always going to be behaviors and the way that leaders behave versus the way that followers behave. Leader as position, and here we look at positional power and what it means to be Donald Trump and to be the most powerful person in charge of the most powerful nation. Although some people will say that that is Xi. That is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the Chinese president's name right. And then leadership as results, the argument that you cannot be a leader unless you've achieved certain things, and the flaws around those arguments. So when we look at our answers that we've given in terms of what makes a leader, our answers fit in mostly into a person, mostly into a process, not much in a position, although it's inferred that all those leaders had significant positions, and then leadership as results. The one that we hadn't discussed, and it is a bit of a flawed argument, and we'll spend a bit of time on seeing why it's so difficult to rate leaders based on their results. So, if we look at the leadership as a person, so here we look at trait theory. I'm not going to go through each of these because certainly you can read this yourself. So, the first one is drive. I think for me, I always think of our Springbok coach, the drive in this individual in terms of wanting to achieve successes, never being satisfied, the notion of continuous improvement, where zero defect in terms of perfection is never going to happen because we constantly evolve. Wonderful examples, achievement, motivation, ambition, all of those kinds of elements. And then motivation. I think the one thing that we must remember about people in leadership positions is that you get two kinds of leaders. Those that are thrust into a leadership position because of circumstances, and those that actively seek it out. And I think there is a definite difference between those leaders. I think these kinds of leaders, that are those leaders that are thrust into those positions, often moment in time leaders. They are there for a specific purpose. And then there are those people who, as part of their ambitions, want to be in a position of leadership. Can I see, just with a show of hands, who actively would seek out a leadership position? And it's a time to be honest now. I won't say a word because I'm not the person to actively want to be a leader. I really don't want to be in charge of people. I'm quite happy to be a follower, although make a very difficult follower. Anyone here that sees career success as this ladder thing and that leadership is something to aspire to? Tam, obviously, nice. Yeah, and considering your position, I'm saying obvious. Janine as well. Nice, Janine. And I didn't mean it in a bad way. Tam. Nee as well, very nice. Kensani, very, very cool. Okay. Who would avoid leadership like the plague? Now, somewhere I'll put my hand up here. I'll avoid leadership like the plague. Who else would avoid? I'll look at the other pages and see if other people have put their hands up. Oh my gosh, we've got people who all aspire to be leaders except for your useless lecturer. Trace, also, well done, Trace. That's 25% extra. Oh dear. Go. Oh gosh, I'm going to have that haunt me forever. Right. And then just other bits and pieces. And a lot of this came out. Honesty, integrity came out very, very strongly. I think for me is what you see is what you get. Self-confidence, the kind of confidence that we see in someone like Obama. Again, I'm not going to talk about the other one. And then cognitive ability. I think these people are able to discern from situations the correct line of actions, the correct way of approaching situations, dealing with crises, think on their feet. Akamba, I love that. Wherever the money is, yeah, that's my style as well. I think it needs a lot. Um, of patience. I think being a lecturer requires quite a lot of patience as well. I should be rated just on my patience, guys, and their knowledge of the business. So here we're moving and contextualizing it in terms of the business. I think a leader will often be somebody that has worked through a business, that knows the lie of the land, that has spent time in different facets of a business, that spend time on courses like this, that spend time on courses that relate to functional areas as well. very quickly, if we look at those, which are some of the kind of traits that would describe you? What are the traits that best describe you out of those? Which are those traits? I think I'm pretty good at that one there. That analyze, solve problems. Pretty good at that. What else? Also, pretty good at self-confidence, guys. Um, nice, Gavin. Very, very cool. I'm also pretty good at self-confidence. I'll admit that. I'm pretty confident. Anyone want to share honesty, integrity? Oh, that's the opposite of me. I'm dishonest and have no, I'm teasing again. Cognitive ability, nice, Valencia. Nice, Valencia. Everyone's very quiet, or they're too shy to blow their own trumpet. Drive, nice, nice, Cameron. Yeah. I think those are essential elements. I think the wanting to get ahead and take chances. Nice, Kensani. Very, very, very nice. Okay. Lots of honesty, integrity coming through. Love that. So that is leadership as a person. And it's based on a person's traits or characteristics. The second one is leadership as a process. So here we look at the sort of behavioral school of thought that it's not really your characteristics that make you a leader, it's rather how you behave. Now, the key difference between that slide there is here, leaders are born, here, leaders are made. Are leaders born or are they made? Or are they made? Because here we say leaders are born, here we say leaders are made. I think it's both. I think it is both because I think you need those characteristics to effectively implement those behaviors. Can we take somebody who is not a natural leader and make them a leader? Entities, absolutely. I think so, Noah. I think otherwise I wouldn't do courses like this. I mean, at some point in my life made my money doing leadership training because it's best to have the balance, but you can also, yeah, only if they wanted get agreed, McLaurin, but you can also show somebody the behaviors. This is what we expect from a leader. It's whether they as effective as somebody who is a naturally born leader. So the first one, leaders are different to others. I also think that leadership depends on context. I think one of the things we know about leadership is that often your leadership approach and your leadership style and your behavior will work under certain circumstances but won't work under other circumstances. And often people will accept you as a leader before you are a leader. Because one of the things, if we look at that list of names, I disagreed with a couple of those people that you had shared as leaders. But the reality is, leadership is the eye in the eye of the beholder. And often you have to behave according to a set of standards, and that people have to accept that behavior as leadership behavior. And it really depends on the context. I'm always amazed that if you think of how an organization evolves from startup to growth to maturity to decline, you can never have the same leader who is the startup leader, who is the growth leader, who is the maturity leader, and who is the decline leader, because the behaviors are very, very different. Somebody who's done it really well in terms of startup and growth is Elon Musk. But I think you are expected to behave very differently, and sometimes leadership is a moment in time. I don't know what your comment on that is. What kind of behaviors do you need from a startup leader? What kind of behaviors do you need from a startup leader? You need exceptional risk taking, exceptional resilience, exceptional ambition. You need. I think you actually want consistently inconsistent behavior, because for startups, it's about sparking ideas, it's about thinking quickly, um, and lots of motivation, lots of drive. Those those change as the Sorry, guys, I struggle with that. Hold on a second. It's an area that creates or cultivates innovation. Thank you so much. Oh, I thought I was muted still. My apologies. That was a cough rather than a sneeze. Um, During growth, what kinds of behaviors do we need from a leader? Because all the sparking ideas, it is now to maintain that innovation. It's the kind of behaviors that will start putting systems in place. Yeah, charismatic psychopaths. Are you talking about Elon Musk again? Oh, I love that. And I think we need charismatic psychopaths. No, we don't need charismatic psychopaths ever. Yeah, rapid response to conditions, but it's a person who'll start bringing in systems and procedures. In maturity, that kind of leveling off, there's a different set of behaviors. And in decline, you almost need the undertaker type person, because that's the person that has to now close this business down and 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 bring an end to it. So yeah, the staying curious one is a wonderful example, because that's Steve Jobs's sort of motto: stay curious, stay hungry. In leadership as a position. So we have a couple of people who have quite senior positions in class. Can I see, do we, I mean, I've had CEOs in this class previously, and managing directors. Any CEO or managing directors here? No CEOs or managing directors. I need to filter through my pages clearly. Executive managers here, C-suite managers, if that's the term that you guys use. Any executive managers here? Okay. Senior managers? Future absolutely counts, Stacy. Senior managers? Oh my gosh. Middle managers? Dear Lord, help me. At least one person admits what they are. Okay, it just depends on when I now sell you the question papers. I'll ask more from the more senior people, obviously. So when we look at leadership position, it makes Donald Trump, based on the being in charge of the most powerful nation in the world, in charge. It is the hierarchy that gives you the position. These leaders are often appointed, although a lot of leaders naturally get there. I also think that what this positional power gives you is your ability to exercise control over resources, the ability to control budgets, the ability to grant salary increases, etc. And I think it's also those individuals that can give instructions and punish non-performance. Now, Tamron absolutely loves giving instructions and punishing non-performance. His staff told me that they live in fear. Um, I don't know why I'm on your case tonight, Tam. Sorry, man. Tam, will you please stay on just a second afterwards? I just want to chat to you about one of my students that you guys are interviewing. And
Sure.
then leadership as results. This is a difficult one, because it's very difficult to determine the line of sight between what a leader does and the results that are achieved. I mean, a silly example is you appoint somebody as a CEO during phenomenal economic growth, wonderful spike in demand, etc. And this person looks exceptional. and you take the same person and you appoint them during a time of recession, and that company doesn't perform. So the real question is, can we really hold leaders accountable for the results that are achieved? Because is it the leader that causes the results, or is something else that has to be considered to cause the results? It depends on the results we focus on. Yeah. Comments on that, guys? Are leaders responsible and the guarantee of organizational success? I mean, I look at Australian rugby at the moment, the number of people they've had in charge as a coach, and how they just in the doldrums still, and how we've seen the New Zealand coaches struggle for a while. So it's very difficult to have a clear line of sight between what a leader does and what is achieved. Context is important, and I think that's important. That is a way to look at that. So for me, it's not causal, it's correlational. I think a really good leader can do good in an organization, but cannot create successes, can maybe correlate with the successes that are achieved. Power, and in particular, when you work in government, we've seen how multiple um, ministers have tried to turn certain departments around, and just not having the support being an issue. Okay, guys, we'll stop there tonight. Any questions, any comments? I think I think it increases the likelihood, but it doesn't guarantee it. And that's the way to look at it. It's a wonderful way of describing it, Kevin. Okay, guys, I'll stop the recording there.